what would be the key points that you think for your successful application, and what could be potentially improved in your experience? And could you, if possible, share some interesting stories that happened between you and your potential advisor during your application?
I think my main take-home message in this question is like when you are filling out your application, it's important to, when you are writing your essay, to connect the dots. And what does that mean? I mean, there are three main ideas that go into your essay, right? What is your background? What are your interests? And regarding professional, personal, and research interests. And then the third is, what are you going to do with all of that? What are your future, ideas for you, for yourself, for your professional career? So when you're writing these essays, it's important that you connect those dots, and then you let the people that is going to review your essay to know why is the program that you are applying the one that fits in that timeline, in connecting those dots. How this program is going to help you achieve those skills to make you that future self that you are writing in there. So I think the first time that I wrote an essay, it's so hard to, transmit what you're thinking into your writing, right? That's all the challenge for all grad students in general, right? To write in a way that we can engage our audience. But this is the essay where you first have to do that, try to do that, put, time on it, and try to transmit these ideas, again, yourself, your background, your interests, and your future goals, and how this program fits. That's the one element that I will highly recommend. And this, your writing will improve over time. This is something that we are all being challenged with when writing science and when writing personal statements, but this is a very important one. Also, take time to fill out all of the requirements. When you start the process, you kind of only see, that one list of questions in the application, but there are so much documents that goes into it. And I think Joynal was mentioned this at the beginning. It's the essay, it's the application, it's the transcript. If you are international, then there's so many other processes that go behind it. So plan ahead. You have to make your timeline to think how much time will this require? And some things are under your control, but some others are not. Depends on other institutions or agencies to happen. So that can take some time. And if I think about my journey, when I was applying for my master's, I was applying for grad school, but I also was applying for a scholarship. And the timeline of those two things not always match. A scholarship sometimes require more time ahead in order to be fulfilled, specifically if they are not attached to the program that you are applying. There are different types of funding, ones that you can access when you are part of an institution, but there are some others that are outside of that. In my experience, I applied to a Fulbright scholarship, so that process is completely different to the institutional funding. So you have to take that into consideration when you are planning and filling out your application. How long would that take? How do I meet the English requirements, the TOEFL, and the other exams that you already talk about? So I think that's also a very important recommendation.
One of the things that a lot of people told me when I was putting together different applications for different schools is to show, not tell. I guess that's kind of like a little writing trick. Like if you are somebody that is super consistent, right? Just saying in your essay or trying to get as many people to say that you're consistent, that works. But maybe if you can give a story about how your consistency has led to achieving something really great, that's showing that, you're skillful in that way. And then it's sometimes really hard to advocate for yourself. And I think that's what these applications are for. They're not just about like advertising yourself. They're about advocating for yourself. They're about telling these people that you're applying that their lab, their team would benefit from having you. That's something that I really learned, is that you are the thing to be kind of wanted. And honestly, it probably was delusion, because when I got rejection letters, I was like, their loss, like that's their loss. But that's just the mindset that I had to have to keep pushing and to not make myself feel like, down in the dumps. It's you're advocating for yourself. You know yourself the best, and you're not just what you achieve and how many hours you got. It's about the journey that you've taken to get all those achievements. Because I know all of us are super achieved and brilliant and amazing people. There's a lot of amazing, brilliant people out there, I've learned, and I can't be the only one, but it's how your brilliance and how your excellence will contribute to the overall team. And even if that means being somebody who's super willing to learn, because that's something that a lot of programs may want, somebody that's open-minded enough to learn. And so I would say that a successful application advocates for yourself in a way that nobody else really can, because you're something worth taking on. And ways to improve your application is to just add ways that really shows the reader, the person that's reviewing the applicant, that you're really an individual, because we're people are people, and we're not just like data crunching machines. We're people, and that's worth celebrating. It really is. I have such a soft touch when it comes down to academia, because I feel like it's super rigid and it's really easy to get caught up in that rigidity, but I can't. And so that's why it was important for me to find an advisor that would accommodate that, and your application should kind of show that. But maybe you're on the opposite side of the spectrum where you really benefit from structure. Show that. Show how you mastered your morning routine. Talk about how you mastered, developing a skill that we all know it takes a while to develop skills. Show the ways in which you're strong and how you can benefit the team. And so your application is a little different. Like, we all can have the same skills and ideas and concepts and everything, but the way you advocate for yourself is different. Not everybody advocates for themselves. And so and I think that's, and lastly, for me, I got my position by just advocating for myself. I was asking my advisor not for a job, but for information, because I was advocating for my right to know stuff. I was like, I don't know nothing. Tell me about it. And that was just me stepping up. Instead of being like, I don't know, I used my resources. I went back to my networks. I allowed people to help me. And I recognize completely that my situation journey is something that is not common whatsoever. But for me, that's just enough reason for me to do this work really authentically and as best as I can, because it's an opportunity that not a lot of people get. So advocating for yourself is super, super important, and everybody deserves it. Everybody watching, everybody listening, you deserve to be advocated for, because you're awesome and amazing. And who else to advocate for you than yourself?
Just to reiterate, it's really hard to advocate for yourself, especially in writing, without I don't know. I feel like I struggled with, I think that there's a fine line maybe between advocating in a way that is not very legible to people who might be reviewing your application. So yeah, I don't have a ton to add, but I think that something that both of you have said so far is be specific in your personal statement. I think that is maybe the most an underlying super important thing. Don't be vague. Be very, very specific about who you are, who you want to work with, why you think the program is good for you, what your background is, etc. And throw out a research interest. Again, it doesn't have to be what you end up doing, but just to demonstrate that you are thinking about research and thinking about things that align with particular people at the place that you're applying. It's definitely something that I encourage you to do multiple drafts of when you're writing your personal statement, and get people to look at it, even if they're not in academia. If it's just friends or family. I think that I got some of the best feedback on my personal statement from just some guy who would come into this coffee shop I was working at the time, and he gave me great feedback. It was super nice. And I think that you never know who is going to have really solid feedback for you. So definitely try to get feedback before you submit. I think like the other thing that you have a little more like control over is like letters of recommendation. And those can be kind of tricky, I think, to sometimes find people who are willing to write them. And some institutions will require 2, some will require 3, which is kind of a lot. And again, like, you know, depending on where you are in your life, like that can be more or less difficult. So like, I took a few years off between undergrad and grad school, like 3 years. And so, you know, thankfully I'd like kept in touch with some people from my undergrad experience who I knew pretty well, but, you know, it was still kind of a weird thing to go back and ask after a few years of not really interacting with these people and being like, hey, like, can you write me a letter of recommendation? But in general, like, I think professors are pretty willing to do that. And they're like, it's one of the reasons why there's like legal requirements for them to like keep your work for like a certain number of years after you grad, like, I think it's like 10 years or something that assignments and stuff are like filed away for. And so like, even if a professor doesn't immediately remember you, like they might be willing to go and look and like see what kind of work you did for them. And then like, maybe that would jog their memory. But you can also ask people outside of academia, because really the letters of recommendation are just to like kind of get a sense of who you are as a person and who you might be as a grad student. And so like, if you feel like you are struggling to think of like a third person or a second person to get a letter from, just like think about people, if you have like a job, like, you know, your boss or someone who you work with who like knows you really well. And I've heard, this isn't my personal experience, but I've definitely like heard stories about how like some of the best letters of rec that people have ever application committees have ever seen have been from like random coworkers at like UPS or, you know, these like not totally non-academic jobs. And so it's not like a detriment necessarily to your application if you aren't able to get recommenders who are like, you know, big shot academics. I don't think that like that will be held against you.
I'd like to highlight a few points. Like number one, let's say a strong academic background, which is very important things, you know, demonstrating a strong academic record, especially in a relevant courses, it's crucial. Maintain I used to say like maintain a high GPA and take courses that align with your interests. Let's say you are particularly applying for geography or you would like to work on geospatial sciences, then courses such as geography, geospatial sciences, or machine learning or statistics. Second, I can say relevant experience. What Mariam mentioned, that gain practical experiences in your desired field through internship, what she did, research projects or work in related fields. Highlight these experiences in your application to showcase your hands-on skills and commitment to the field. Another very important things, thirdly, I would like to mention the personal statement, what already Gareth and Mariam emphasized a lot, is the personal statement. I think this is one of the key factors for strong application. So craft a compelling and well-written personal statement that highlights my passion for my desired field, my relevant experiences, and my future goals. So what I did, as I approached to my professor that, okay, I would like to do research on natural hazards or environmental and climatic hazards. So I need to convey my message to him that, okay, I'm really interested to this field or these things using the GIS or geospatial analysis or techniques. So what I did in my personal statement, okay, I highlighted that, okay, as I'm from Bangladesh, you know, this is one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world. So I saw people's sufferings, their, uncountable damages of environment and resources. So based on the things, I decided to work on these things so that I can light my own bulbs, I can work on my people's, those kind of stuff. So somehow, you have to make a good story, that compelling story, that okay, I chose that particular field, and that's the reason I would like to be, I'd be very much passionate to work on that particular thing. So based on my understanding, like personal statement, this is one of the very important things, like what Anissa mentioned, that you have to advocate yourself. How you'll advocate yourself, like kind of email sharing, it's just not that much enough. So you have to advocate yourself using your personal statement. Okay, these are my potential skills. I would like to do these things, and these are my like strength right now. Then I would like to mention what Gareth mentioned, like a strong letter of recommendations. This is one of the very crucial things. For PhD, I think you have to do based on the institution 3 or 2. So obtain strong letter of recommendations from professors or employers or mentors who can speak to your abilities, your academic abilities, and kind of potential for success in a desired program, let's say GIS or cartography. So choose individuals who know you well and can provide specific examples of your strengths. So in my case, what I did, like I like my main letter of recommendation I collected from my master's supervisor, because she nurtured me last 2 years, so she knows me well, which are my expertise, which are my weakness, so that based on my collective efforts, she can write very good, good and interactive recommendation letters. Number 5, I can emphasize the research potential advisors, because this is one of the crucial things. PhD is, based on my understanding, this is a marathon thing. You have to do it for 4 years, 5 years. So if you don't have a good chemistry with your professor, then I know this is not a sustainable way to sustain in your field in terms of academia or career. So research potential advisors within the program, and identify those whose research interests really align with your own. So mention them, mention their name in the application, explain why you are interested in working with them. The story I told in my personal statement, that, okay, these are my interests, and these are the facts. Now, these facts are really aligned entirely along with my, potential supervisor's interests. So I would like to work with him. So you have to highlight these things. So this demonstrates that you have done your homework again and are genuinely interested in their work. And last but not least, I would like to say kind of, standout portfolio. So if applicable, not necessarily, if applicable, if you have, create a portfolio showing your, let's say GIS or cartography projects, maps or visualizations, etc. If you have good publications, if you did any, this can provide a concrete evidence of your skills and creativity, So second part of the questions, I can say in terms of, areas for potential improvement, I think you have to ensure that you have thoroughly researched the programs and universities you are applying to, understand their strengths, faculty expertise, and available resources. Then tailor your application materials to each specific programs to demonstrate your genuine interest. Then second, I think you have to ensure that your application is well organized with all required documents submitted in a timely manner. Double check that you have followed the guidelines provided by each university and proofread your application materials. So as an international student, what happened with me, like let's say I prepared all of the documents, everything is right, going well, but later I thought, oh, I didn't submitted my IELTS score so far. Okay, now what okay, my deadline is approaching 1 week. So if I send it now via, let's say FedEx or something, it will take 10 days. So what we'll do is going to create another extra tension or burden. So you have to be, well organized in terms of all of the required application materials. And if you say any kind of like particular experiences, what I face, I don't have any much, enthusiastic experiences, but I can share one thing like within few sentences. So I applied like, let's say 7 or 8 universities, and I got almost all of them application with funding. So now the sweet things happens with me, like, okay, all of the universities I chose or I selected are very close ranked, and the professors as well. So I select, okay, the Texas A&M University for now. Now the most interesting thing has happened. Okay, now I have to choose my advisors. So there were 2-3 different things. One of the advisor, he was a professor, full professor, and my current advisor, he's an assistant professor and very young one. So I was in a dilemma. No, okay, which one I need to choose? So my wife, she is suggesting, she was also like my batchmate. She did also bachelor and master's in geography along with me. So she was suggesting, okay, choose the experienced professor one, because she will have he have lots of experiences. He will be able to delve lots of experiences in your research. So I was kind of confused. Okay, no, because experienced professor, they are busy with so much projects, other invited talks, journal things, lots of issues. So they'll devote very less time. So what I choose, I can choose an young professor or early career one, so that he will involve too much time with my research and other things. So later, I choose, like, there was a little bit in a debate, kind of 2-3 days, we discussed the pros and cons of every aspect, and finally I decided, okay, I'm going to one of the young professors, so that he can involve too much time with me, and I can get the things. So that is also another thing, like in our first or second questions, I mentioned the mentoring style, which I got, like, as an international student, I don't have the chance to meet the professor like Gareth did. So what I'll suggest, like, you can get some sense in the way of your communication. Let's say before going to admit, from first email to last email, at least there will be 15 to 20 emails you're going to send or receive. So in that case, the way of the communication via email, you can get a sense of the idea. Let's say I'm emailing to my professor, so I always maintain the good timing. Let's say I adjusted the timing. Okay, it is the morning time in United States, around 9:10. So the professor is just going to start his day, so he can see the email. So I'm just sending the email based considering that time, and like within 2, 3, 4 hours or 5 hours, or within the day, he's replying me. You can sense the idea. Okay, that means he's attentive to the students, or he can like, kind of, you can get a sense. But let's say I'm applying after 7 days. People make it busy. After 7 days, he's applying. Oh, okay, yeah. So those kind of communication, you can get a sense of idea. Okay, how your potential advisor could be. So that's the happens. Like, that's the sweet story I can share.